my name would not be spelled Lzzy if there was no Ozzy.
Oh my God.
You know, there's
Alt 98.7 LA's Alternative Rock. You're listening to She Is the Voice, and our guest in studio is Lzzy Hale.
Yeah. I am the voice. No.
Yes. It's such a pleasure to have somebody like you because I'll be honest, like a lot of the music we play, it's very alternative and alt pop. And, you know, we've had a lot of special guests in here, but it's not often that I get to speak to a woman like yourself that fucking rocks.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's so exciting. And so when your management and the record label were like, hey, what about Lzzy? I'm like, done and done.
Thank you so much.
Like,
that's awesome. I love it. Yeah, you know, it's funny because I love all types of music. I have this kind of belief that if it's good, it's good.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter. And, you know, so yeah, and everything in its own way has an attitude that I'm attracted to. So.
You're absolutely right. And rock and roll is kind of that way in general. I think that umbrella, it embraces an attitude. It's not necessarily a style of music anymore.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah, you're so right. So for a lot of our listeners, they may not be familiar with Halestorm. They may not be familiar with your story. And, you know, just to give a little introduction, in my opinion, Halestorm is one of the biggest bands in rock and roll. And Lzzy is, you know, one of the few females who fronts this badass rock band. There's not many, let's be honest.
It's true. There are more now than there used to be. It wasn't that long ago that I remember, you know, at any given festival, I was the only girl on the bill. And so I'm very proud to say that it has changed a little bit, and that's amazing.
Yeah. No, I agree. And we're not going to let that dominate our conversation because I'm sure at this point...
We haven't won the war. We've won a few battles. Yeah. We're still kicking. Yeah.
Yeah, we need more. The job is not done. We do need more. But I also figure you're asked about this so much. And while, you know, I love that you are one of the few females, in my opinion, that front like really hard rock bands, that doesn't define you. And totally know that. You know, Halestorm have had 6 Billboard #1 songs.
Oh, yeah.
Huge.
Isn't that wild?
Huge. 11 top 10s. That's massive.
You know, it's funny. I don't think about that until somebody like you mentions that. I'm like, that's amazing. You know,
it is amazing.
You know, I've been in this band since I was 13 years old. Yeah. You know, started with my little brother. And you couldn't have told me any of that in those days. And so I'm very grateful.
And I do want to go back to the early days. I'd love you to talk about, did you always want, like, have you always been into hard rock, or what did you grow up on? What were you listening to? Who were your idols?
I was an odd kid when, you know, because I was a teenager in the 90s, but I was kind of unaware of the movements that were happening during the time. I was actually very deep and obsessed with my parents' music. Okay. So on my dad's side, I was listening to Alice Cooper and Dio and Black Sabbath. On my mom's side, it was Heart, Pat Benatar, Janis Joplin, the Beatles, you know, all of that. So
amazing. So amazing. I had parents.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I took an Alice Cooper CD to a slumber party when I was like 11, and those kids weren't having it at all. You know, they're like, who is she? You know,
I love it.
Funny.
I love it.
But that was the foundation of what it was. You know, and I would be my parents' friends would get me all of these VHS tapes of you know, performances by all of these people. So I'd be looking at Tom Kiefer from Cinderella and be like, oh my gosh, how do I do that? You know, and so yeah, it was something that I've always wanted to do. And once my brother and I, you know, got, in our opinion, you know, rocking enough to play in front of people, you know, we did that immediately, and then we just never stopped. And we named the band Halestorm on our way to our first show, which was at the Schuylkill County Fair in the middle of Pennsylvania, like farmland. Yeah. You know, and we haven't stopped since. It's always been like, what do we do next? How far can we take this? So.
That is amazing. I just spent some time with Linda Perry last week, and
I love her.
She's an incredible human being, incredibly talented. But I read a quote that she said to you, and I want to know if this rings true. She said, if you are rock and roll, you don't need to try, you just need to exist. And I heard that was an inspiration for you when you made Everest.
Oh, absolutely. Because I love Linda. You know, we've known each other for many years. We've worked together, and we were hanging out having coffee, and we were talking about the state of rock and roll. And, she mentioned something. She's like, I just feels like everybody's trying so hard to be rock. And she just kind of turns to me. Everything that drops out of her mouth is like a line for a song. She just exists that way. But that's what she says. She said, look, you don't have to try. If you are rock and roll, you just have to exist and exude that and be that. And so while we're making this record, we kind of had no choice but to do that, because we recorded this record differently than we have done any record in our past. Usually we come in and we have we wrote 60 songs, we narrowed it down to 15, which is probably going to be 10 eventually, and we rolled into the studio with Dave Cobb, in Savannah, Georgia, and he looked at and he's like, oh no, I don't want to hear any demos. I don't want to work on anything you had yesterday. I want to start from scratch every single day. So as terrifying as that is, because all of a sudden we're like, wow, we are not prepared. It was really cathartic and really amazing, and it forced us to live in the moment and make ourselves a little bit uncomfortable. So we'd wake up every morning and he'd be like, okay, you got a line for me? You got a riff? What are we doing? Here's a drum groove, get on the drums. And then as we were writing it, we would hit record. So we were kind of capturing, really the majority of this record and the bass of this record it was done in a few takes, if anything, which made it hard when we were trying to rehearse later live. We're like, wait, we played that once. What was that chord again? Yeah, but it was amazing.
Done in real time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that's where the magic happens. If you can put yourself literally into the fire, you have no choice but to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then that's when the opportunity to bring something out of yourself that you didn't even think that was in there, instead of overthinking it so hard and then having 6 different versions of the song and squeeze the life out of it. And so it was a very enjoyable experience. And we were also isolated in Savannah, Georgia. He has this house out there, and so there were beds up top and a kitchen, and then we all the equipment we could ever need. And it was, the guys and I felt like we were 19 again. We're like, this is crazy. Cool. So yeah,
that's so cool. And when you write, is it very much does somebody have an idea and then you go from there? How much of a lead do you take in the songwriting?
The guys trust me with words, which I still don't understand why. Every now and again, you're like, really? That's what you're saying in the song? So usually the concept and everything kind of falls on me. The majority of the time, I'll kind of have a basic, hey, here's this or here's that I think is special. But while we're making this record, it really was kind of a free for all. Some of these songs started with RJ would sit down at the drums and be like, that sounds great. Can we do something with that? Yeah. Or my guitar player would have a riff in the morning, that sounds great. Yeah. So it really was just chasing whatever got us excited and using that as our kind of divining rod. Yeah.
Very cool. One thing I want to talk about is we touched on this a little bit. There's not many women who rock hard. And 2 other incredible women that I love are Amy Lee and Taylor Momsen.
Oh, yeah.
And to me, Halestorm, Evanescence, and The Pretty Reckless, you all come from kind of the same era. I'm sure you see each other at festivals.
Oh,
and
yeah.
on tour.
We've been friends for many years. They are the coolest ladies.
That's so...
And I remember the last time... it always comes up because the last time we went out on tour with Evanescence, Amy and I were talking a lot about our responsibility, as... I turned to her. We were watching Side Stage, one of the opening bands that were on that tour. Actually, The Warning, who are 3 sisters from Mexico.
Love.
So we would skip warm up. We just dude, we have to watch this every night. And I turned to her and I said, so how does it feel, to now be one of those women that all of these girls that are standing out there look up to? And she's like, girl, what about you, man? I'm like, hey, look, cool. We're both in this category. But then we got into this deeper conversation about the responsibility of that and the responsibility to keep working hard, to literally exist in this business, and live unapologetically doing our art, because that holds the gate open for all of these young girls to see themselves reflected in us and to believe that it is possible to do these things. And then we were talking about our foremothers of rock and roll and all of the women that came before us, and and I've been very lucky to have conversations with Pat Benatar and Lita Ford and Joan Jett and Ann Wilson, and man, I really wish I could have had a conversation with Janis Joplin. She sounds like a hoot, but but you hear these stories about women, oh, I had to sit in somebody's lap to get my record played, or I had to do this, or I had to compromise this way. But because they prevailed and they kept carving out that path regardless of the hardship that it was, it made it a little easier for us. And so my conversation with Amy was like, I think that our only responsibility is to make it a little easier for the girls that are coming up after us. And just keep passing the torch, because and I remember that feeling of like when I first heard Ann Wilson sing live, and I'm like, oh my gosh, girls can sing like that. I was a kiddo, and I'm like, it made me feel not so alone in this world. And so, if we're doing that for any amount of young ladies right now, we're doing our job.
I'm kind of tearing up. That's really cool.
It's something that you don't think about when you start a band, because like when I started a band, all I want to do is play with my buddies and my brother in a band. Like that's my life goal. And so this has kind of been a tremendous gift to have lasted as long as I have, and I still feel like we're just getting started, but to be able to be that and get these beautiful letters every night from these young girls, say, hey, I started a band, I started guitar, or I started photography because I saw you were living your dream, those kind of things. And it's just amazing. I'm very humbled by it.
Incredible. So last July, Ozzy's farewell concert happened, back to the beginning. And, one of the headlines was Halestorm. Lzzy Hale was the only female represented on that entire bill.
I know. And I was like, okay, seriously, there has to be some other people, I was very, honored to be in that slot. And there was a moment on stage at that performance. We were performing a song of ours called Rain Your Blood on Me, which is my female war cry on this record.
Absolutely.
And all of these girls got up on these guys' shoulders, and they're like, hey, I am here, I am seen. And I had this moment where when I was first listening to Ozzy Osbourne, and I didn't have a whole lot of girlfriends that understood me, and I looked out there, I'm like, wow, there are so many women that were just like me. And they're, so it was this kind of like lob back and forth. And what an amazing moment. What an amazing show and opportunity to be at. My name would not be spelled Lzzy if there was no Ozzy.
Oh my God.
There's like all of these things. The first riff I ever learned on guitar was Heaven and Hell by Black Sabbath. There was, all of these kind of full circle moments. But the most beautiful thing was that everybody there, like the rock gods, the all walks of life, everybody in the audience was there for the right reasons and the same reasons. There was no egos involved. Everyone was just giddy and locked in and just there for everything. And I don't think we'll ever experience another concert like that.
Right.
It's like at one point in time when Ozzy got to perform, we were hanging out with the Osbournes and a bunch of the other people on this kind of platform in the middle of the arena, so we could watch everything. And he started singing "Mama, I'm Coming Home," and I start crying. And then I'm like, look around, and like my guys are crying. And then I look at the entire arena, everyone's eyes are sweating. Like we are all feeling the same feelings, and that's the power of rock and roll. This, these guys gave us this sanctuary, this place for, those of us who felt, weird or misunderstood, the downtrodden, and we're all, we're with our tribe right now. It was just amazing.
Oh my God, what a beautiful night.
Yeah.
Man, I wish I could have been there. I watched it, but I just
and then to
wasn't
lose
the
him
same.
so soon afterward, that was just heartbreaking. Because it's Ozzy. You don't believe that these guys, okay, he's going to retire. He's ailing, and it was so heartbreaking. He wanted to get up out of his chair, and he couldn't. But he was so happy, and he sounded great. And I turned to the guys. I'm like, look, I know he's retiring, but he's Ozzy. Like he's like pickled himself like throughout the years. We're going to get at least another couple of years.
He's the godfather of metal. Like he's
and
not.
So it was wild. Yeah.
Oh, that is wild. Wow, what a special night! And you guys got to cover Perry Mason, which was just sick.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was actually a last minute change too, because we were going to do a National Acrobat for like weeks. We were talking to Tom Morello, who that poor man was herding cats the whole day. He was like responsible for all of us, and it was like a week out. He's like, hey, like we don't don't have anything in this area. Like, would you mind doing something? And so I was like, well, what about Perry Mason? Like, we actually used to cover that when we were teenagers, and and that's kind of like, 90s Ozzy. That's like where we kind of got introduced anyway. So it was so much fun to do that, and it was so much fun to see how many people truly love that song and that era of his.
We're celebrating Women's History Month. It's the month of March, and Halestorm currently has a single, Like a Woman Can. So
yes, we do.
I don't think you timed it for that way on purpose at all, but here we are.
Not at all, but this is where we are.
Here we are.
No, it's interesting. So Like a Woman Can,
it's got a different sound than
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's kind of musically, it has this swing to it. It was that type of kind of almost leaning a little bit more into like a blues situation. It's like, which I can only do my thing the best I can, as far as the blues go.
But it out. You sound amazing.
But we had this kind of downward progression, and ended up singing this. The vocals on this were the first take, because
wow.
And it's funny because I sang this song, and then the next day I got really sick. Like I came down with a cold, and I'm just like, well, at least we got that. It was like one of those.
Nobody does
it exude that.
No one.
And then we ended up building the track around kind of this kind of basic piano, and vocal performance. But yeah, Like a Woman Can. It's a spicy song for a couple of different reasons. Many years ago, I accidentally came out as bisexual, and I love my boys, but there is the fact is that nobody knows a woman like a woman knows a woman,
so
and whether you want to take that as a sexual thing, that's what it's there for. That's why it's spicy. But also this is the conversation, and asking Mars to meet Venus in the middle somewhere, but it's like, the first instance of the song was that line. Like I had written it down. I always carry like notepads and stuff like that. I wrote down, it's like, why can't you love me like a woman can? I'm like, oh, that's going to make some people a little uncomfortable, which I love anyway. But
I love that.
But it's empowering because I hope that, women, see themselves reflected in it and understand that and it's I have the best boys in my band in the world because we all understand that we walk hand in hand together, but nobody really knows what it's like to walk in our shoes as women, not only in this industry, but just in life in general, but man, it is a fantastic thing to be a woman in rock and roll. And I recommend it to anyone.
You're playing some really big festivals this summer. Sonic Temple, Louder Than Life.
Yes.
I feel like Halestorm is no stranger to these types of festivals. A lot of massive rock bands play these things. So it's everyone from Metallica to Falling in Reverse to Deftones to Korn. It's just in Halestorm is there, and Evanescence is there a lot too. What's it like playing these festivals?
Oh, it's amazing. It's like it's like band camp, summer camp, because you get to see all of your friends. Because we all tour so much. So unless you're on tour with your buddies, it can be like years. But that's the thing about living this type of fast-paced life is that everybody kind of picks up right where they left off.
Yeah.
There's no awkwardness. Usually a lot of shenanigans, and you get to support each other from side stage and see everybody's set. It's
who do you love
lovely
to watch? What bands if you're at one of these and you're like, I gotta
oh my
make
God!
sure I watch.
Literally, it's everybody.
Yeah.
I'm always interested in the newer bands, maybe that I've heard on the radio, but I haven't seen live yet.
Yeah.
That's one of my things because I love live music so much. I'm like, okay, if I like this song, that's great that it's on the radio, but I have to see you live. And how do you do it? And what's your attitude? I have to support my ladies always. Because like I was saying before, it's like there was only a short time ago where it's like there was no other ones, and so the fact that there's so many on these lineups this year is amazing. And yeah, I mean, it's just it's such a joy for me to stand side stage for my friends and sing along to the songs that I know. And, sometimes you try to distract them a little bit, like, hey, say what's going on. Oh, you screwed that thing up. No, you make fun of each other too. It's like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I know you have been in music a long time, but 20 years as a band with the same band members. Yeah. One of them really is your brother. But is everybody in this band, are they your family? Like, again, we know your brother is literally your family.
Yeah,
but
they're my road family. I've known Joe and Josh since I was 19 years old.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how I feel like that's our biggest accomplishment. Like, you can take all of the accolades, everything that you could list, and it's just the fact that we've kept it together and we still love and respect each other. And
it's very impressive. A lot of rock bands go through different lineups and they change out different players. And to be a band, the same people for that long, it's very impressive.
We try not to question it, but it is a topic that does come up, and I think that it has to do with we didn't really mature that much. It's like once you get in a rock band with each other, you just kind of stay there. So if there aren't any fart jokes by noon, it's just not going to be a good day. But I laugh to the point of tears with these guys, and it's kind of like you have to respect the fact too that we're all kind of like war buddies. We've had to. There's nobody, including our outside family, that know us as well as we know each other, or have been through the things, or have had to fight through the things that we've had to fight for, with each other. And so there is this wonderful respect. And also, we keep it spicy. Like, we don't use any tracks. There's no miming, no trickery. So we have this joke all the time before we go on stage. We're like, okay, we're going to jump off the cliff together, and don't worry, I packed your parachute. Don't worry, it's going to be fine. And off we go, and it keeps it exciting. We switch up the set every night, and we really do love and support each other. Those guys have seen me live through so many different lifetimes, and have always been, supportive of me and my endeavors. There's never been any jealousy of like, oh, well, the singer gets to do this or that, or like these things, and I'm really grateful.
On a closing note, is there one piece of advice you could give to young women trying to break into rock music and just get their shot and get heard?
Never lose your inner teenage defiance. When we were starting out, and I'll paraphrase this so it doesn't become a long-winded story, but it went from when we were in clubs, people saying, oh, I'd be carrying in my equipment, and these guys at the club would be like, oh, my girlfriend never carries in my equipment, or like the merch table is over there. And so what I ended up doing was like, well, that's ridiculous. I am in the band. And when I realized that nobody was going to assume that I'm in the band, I used to start out our set in the back of the club, like with a hoodie and a mic, so they would hear my voice first, and then be like, oh, surprise. Fast forward to when we were shopping to labels, and a lot of these labels aren't around anymore, but we shopped to Columbia, Epic, Island, Def Jam, Hollywood Records, et cetera, et cetera. And there were so many of those execs that were saying, okay, we love what you do, but we don't know what to do with you, because girls aren't really a thing in rock right now. So again, this attitude was like, well, that's ridiculous. I'm going to do it anyway. And then even after we were signed, we were trying to, get singles on the radio. It was, oh, we've already got one. We already have an Amy Lee, or we have something else, and it's like, so you have to kind of take those things as these are not things that define who you are. This is somebody else's attitude. And that does not control your destiny, and that is not, you can't consider that a roadblock. Yes, it could be a challenge, but again, don't let anybody tell you what you can't do. If anything, this should have never worked out. I'm from I grew up on a 20-acre farm in Pennsylvania. My dad was a third shift mechanic. This should have never worked out, but I'm here. And so, living proof that you can absolutely do whatever you want. And the most important thing, in what you do is that you love what you do. Have that desert island mentality. If there was nobody else's opinion, nobody else on earth, would you still love what you do? And just keep following that, and don't give up. Don't stop, no matter what. Outlast them all, babies.
Amazing. Lzzy, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank
she
you,
is
darling.
The voice. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been such wonderful talking to you.